Hello and welcome to Ergo Cast episode number 2. I am your host, Robert Kornacki, and today we're going to be doing a 2019 year in review for Ergo. I am pleased to be joined by two originally core devs of Ergo and who have contributed very extensively to Ergo as a whole and really made it what it is today. We have Alex Chepurnoy, which you may remember from episode number 1, and we are pleased to have Dmitry Meshkov with us today. And so I'd like to say hello to you both.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm Dmitry Meshkov. I'm in Ergo from the day one, and I remember all its history with implementation. And previous year is, I think, breaking for Ergo because we've launched mainnet. So I hope we'll have a lot of interesting topics today, and we'll discuss previous year and plans for the future.
Hello, everyone. My pleasure to be here again. So, yeah, we have a lot to discuss today for 2019 because, a lot of done. So, let's start.
Cool. So to get things started, we'll start right at mainnet launch. Mainnet launched, as we covered in the previous episode, in July of 2019. And essentially from the start, everyone was quite surprised because we had this giant boost of hash rate, which wasn't as expected. And that was a really good start because, when you launch a new blockchain, maybe there's a lot of people who are supportive, maybe not. And so the more hash rate, the better, because you're less likely to get 51% attacked. So really, from day one of mainnet, things started off, really well. And going off there, we've had countless different additions, most of which we will be covering today won't be about the core additions, because the whole core dev team has done a lot of great stuff in that too. And the node has come really, really far since mainnet launched to today in 2020. However, we can probably cover that in another episode. But today we're going to be much more focusing on some of the bigger developments, community, projects, community, quote unquote, research and protocols that we thought of, and all sorts of big sticking points outside of the core node development that have happened since the mainnet. I guess one of the first things that we could talk about, Alex, is that you went on an Asian tour and you went to many different countries. And so if you could talk slightly about that and how that related to mainnet and kind of what was people's receptions and how did that go?
All right. Yeah. So we had Asian tour for like 3 weeks, and it was really intensive. Right, and kind of painful to me because for 3 days I changed 3 countries, for example. So Japan, South Korea, then Hong Kong, and then Vietnam, then mainland China. Everything in like 10 days. With 3 countries switched in 3 days. It was very intense, and the biggest events we had in Seoul, Shanghai, and Ho Chi Minh. So for Shanghai and Ho Chi Minh, around 200 or maybe 300 people were at meetups, and we got a lot of very positive feedback. We got a lot of new connections. So hopefully they will have another Asian tour, maybe not so long this time in 2020, right? And now it probably will be about Shanghai and Seoul mostly. So no Japan this time. And so we got a lot of users, right? So we got a lot of connections, and we presented at many places, and so it was quite exciting tour to me.
Yeah, it was quite nice to see that immediately after the mainnet launched. that we already, like a lot of projects just stay online. And so it's always good to have a physical presence where, people who represent the project because you were a core developer and you brought it into life, go out, meet people, share the ideas, share the whole project. And so that was really cool to see that pretty early on into mainnet launch that we're actually having a physical presence going out too. And especially in Asia, which, I'm North American. So it's always good to target those markets because, at least for me, all I hear about is, Western European, North American markets. So it's good to know that even a project like this, which I'm participating in and contributing to, is really, branching out globally. So that's pretty cool. So with that out of the way, let's get into a lot of the accomplishments within the community itself and developments in Ergo. So the first one which we'll hit is multi-stage contracts in the UTXO model. This is something you, Alex, wrote a paper on, along with, please excuse me saying this name, Amitabh Saxena. Hopefully I got that right. But in essence, I can summarize slightly because this is one of the things that got me interested in Ergo in the first place, is that we have a new smart contract model, I guess probably one of the first smart contract models for a UTXO-based blockchain. And for a long time, that was never really possible. No one knew how to do it. And so this was one of the first papers that showed it was possible to have Turing-complete smart contracts on a UTXO blockchain. And the innovation there is that you don't have loops in one contract, so you can do arbitrary Turing-complete logic in one contract or in one transaction. But instead that you can chain transactions and then have a Turing-complete system like that. Is that correct, Alex? And is there anything else you would like to add on to that?
Yeah.
Or Dmitry?
I'm not completely sure, but it looks like you're talking about a different paper.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Published a year ago, before this one, with me, Alex, and Vasily Harin, and presented at Ergo. So it's a paper from 2018. And I remember how I found it, and actually we were quite excited about this new idea because so we met to discuss what are the possibilities of Ergo script, what can we do within using this language, or what is not possible, and example by example we found the solution how to implement it using. So we couldn't find the solution that is not possible to implement within Ergo script, and after some time we got an idea that so we can do actually everything because we can efficiently make loops not within one transaction but within a batch of transactions. And actually we already have implemented this idea in Ergo because our emission script emission script operates as described. So it's all coins are locked in some box with quite complicated script that allows to extract few coins every block for a miner. So it's like a proof of concept for me. So we can potentially create infinite loop here because number of blocks is potentially infinite. So quite an easy idea, and it makes a lot of stuff much easier to implement and to understand. I think, at least, it's much easier to make changes step by step instead of a whole batch of loops with potentially infinite loops and out of gas or something like this, like in Ethereum. So yeah, that's quite a cool idea. But after that, Alex and Amitabh presented a second paper. So I think it's time for Alex to join this discussion and tell something about it.
All right, so let me put both the papers into the following perspective. So It was widely believed tenet in the folklore that it is not possible to do Turing complete contracts in the UTXO model. So the first paper, Chepurnoy, Karen, Meshkov, 2018, is about that. The paper is showing that it is indeed possible to do Turing complete contracts with a simple, very limited language without cycles. By connecting a lot of transactions on the blockchain altogether. And by doing this, we can have potentially infinite time, potentially infinite execution also. Okay, but users do not need for Turing completeness, right, in the real world, because this is rather a theoretical concept. So then the second paper is about how to build real contracts, which do require for multiple stages. So we considered some examples like rock, paper, scissors game, which is quite common for all the Solidity tutorials. Most of them I'm aware of, at least. The paper was published in the second half of 2019, and it's co-authored by me and Amitabh Saxena. That's the story.
Nice. And so it's good to see, even on the smart contract side of things, research is not just 1 year and then you continue on. You guys keep doing stuff, and as we'll get to some of the other things in the community that we've had created in the past year, there's a lot of great innovations, and from auctions to interest-free loans, there's a lot that Ergo has to offer.
For the second half of 2019, we have a lot of new examples. So interest-free loan, implementation of the yield protocol. So this is kind of a zero coupon bond scheme.
So could you kind of expand a little bit on that interest-free loans concept?
Right. So this is kind of joint writing scheme, right? So there is collateral. For example, Alice puts this collateral on the blockchain. And then the contract is as follows. So if collateral is growing up in the price, then Alice and Bob are both getting some revenue, right? So they're doing some revenue share agreement at the beginning. Right, so from the collateral price going up, Bob is getting profit, and if collateral price is going down, then at some price margin call happens, right, and Bob is getting the collateral. Then Bob is whether profiting from collateral going up in price, or Bob is getting the collateral for cheaper price than in the beginning, right? And Bob is getting profit in Ergs, right? But the contracts is using some other unit of account, possibly like USD. Right, so then Bob is getting profit, and Alice is also profiting from getting loan and not paying interest in USD, right? So she is paying only in Ergs in the case of Erg prices going up, or otherwise she's losing collateral. That's the basic idea for the interest-free loan contract.
And all of that is on-chain, to be clear, in Ergo script.
Everything is on the blockchain.
So that's pretty cool to have that kind of, this was quite early on, I think, month 2 or 3 of mainnet, and to already have something like this on-chain, which I'm pretty sure for Ethereum took probably 1, 2, 3 years before anything even like this was thought of to put on-chain. So it's quite cool to see some of these early innovations. And I mean, that kind of goes into the next one of the very first smart contracts that was deployed also on Ergo, and tools that interacts off-chain from the off-chain world into the on-chain world, which was the notary tool by Sinan Tivus, excuse me for the name, but essentially this was a Python script that crafted Ergo transactions for you that allows you to use it as a notary tool. And so if either of you have any extra thoughts on this, feel free to pitch in.
Sinan Tivus, as far as I know, it's something in Finnish.
Okay.
Something like blue sky or something like that, as far as I know. Okay, so notary tools are very common, right? So probably many blockchains do have such tools. And so Sinan Tivus made the tool, the notary tool, which is acting as a command line interface utility, right? And which is certifying files on the blockchain. So you are providing some file as an argument, and then its hash is on the blockchain. That's it. And what's good about Ergo specifically is that unlike Bitcoin, for example, we are pretty much welcome putting hashes on the blockchain, even more if you are going to spam the Ergo blockchain with a lot of hashes. We would be excited to see that. Why? Because we have storage rent, right? So if you are going to create a lot of boxes in the state with hashes written into such boxes, then miners will get profit from these boxes few years after by clearing the garbage out of the blockchain or charging such boxes for being in the blockchain state in the UTXO set. That's it. So Ergo is very good specifically about storing data on the blockchain because, now storing data on the blockchain is pretty realistic, right? And pretty secure in regards with blockchain scalability issues.
Right. So this is something, if people don't know, like with Ethereum, it's almost impossible to sync up with a full node these days, unless you use like a, pre-downloaded database from someone else. And so the idea of people putting, a notary tool with hashes nonstop into Ethereum, that's almost seen as like a bad actor spamming the network. While in Ergo, since we do have the storage rent, we don't have that. It's actually preferable, and because you're essentially giving the miners money in the long term, and after a 4-year time span, your UTXO, your box, will be essentially pillaged of its fees and funds with the data there too, and essentially clearing it out. So it's you could see it as a form of garbage collection. Talking about putting data on the blockchain, the next thing that came about in 2019 is crowdfunding. And so crowdfunding was, I believe, in one of the original Ergo script white papers. And so this was something that was already designed before mainnet, technically. But we happened to perform the very first crowdfund on mainnet, I think it was in early September. And it was a little bit ironic because we did a on-chain crowdfund to fund a Ergo crowdfunding tool. And so to expand on that a little bit, with the smart contract already finished, it was possible for anyone to manually create a crowdfund and other people to put their funds and support the crowdfund. And then if it's successful, have the owner withdraw. However, this was all done manually through specifying transactions very specifically and doing everything very verbosely. And so for your average person, even reasonably technical person who doesn't specifically understand how Ergo and its smart contract UTXO model works, this might be a little bit too much of a barrier. And so we did a crowdfund, which went through successfully. And this was a crowdfund for me to create the Ergo crowdfunding tool. So other people have a command line interface a very simple client, so to speak, which allows you to either create a crowdfund or to pay into one. And so that was created in Rust in September, and it is currently in a state where you can fully use it. It also has a very early release that has targeted both Windows and Linux. And so right now you can go create a crowdfund, even export it as a file for others to import into their own CLI clients, and then have them use their Ergo node to send money to the crowdfund, and thus, actually have this funding mechanism on top of Ergo via smart contracts. In the near future, we're going to probably update this tool since we finally had Ergo improvement proposal number 1 come through recently, which allows for much more advanced scanning of boxes. I won't bore you to the details, but essentially this allows for people who run crowdfunding campaigns to actually have them fully tracked within the CLI app, so you can check the progress, see how everything is doing, and then easily be told, hey, your campaign is successful, do you want to withdraw? You type yes, you put in your spending password, and then you withdraw and the crowdfund finishes. That's going to be in the near future when I find some time to actually add that in. But pretty much we already have full-fledged crowdfunds on Ergo, which also, if they fail, they automatically allow everybody to withdraw their funds. This is something that I think many people don't understand the benefit of, where in Ethereum, you have this insane ICO model or crowdfunding model where people just send money to an address and then you trust and hope that they'll, send you a token and then they'll fulfill on their promises. And if they don't, well, then you have to wait 2, 3, 4 months for them to refund you, maybe if they're actually a good actor. It makes much more sense to encode this stuff into smart contracts. And this is one thing that really excited me about Ergo and its power, is that in I think it's 9 to 12 lines of Ergo script, the entire crowdfunding smart contract works. It allows anyone to submit money into a crowdfund. It allows people to get refunded if the whole thing fails. And so that was one of the things that really got me into, supporting Ergo, being part of the community, building something that's actually useful. And so now we technically have the ability to run crowdfunds on Ergo, and that's going to be even better in the next month or two. And if either of you guys have any thoughts on this, feel free to pitch in.
Yeah, may I ask a few questions if
For sure.
if it's possible? So maybe I'm not so good, so not so familiar with your crowdfunding tool, so I have quite stupid questions. So for me, I think we'll discuss this a bit later when we've started wallet, front-end wallet. That was a big mess. The user experience on Ergo, and specifically inability to operate with tokens. So the first question for you is, how about sending tokens? You just talked about that in Ethereum, it's a problem that you should trust that you'll receive your tokens. So how about a crowdfunding tool? Does it automatically send in tokens in case of successful crowdfunding?
So technically this is not a initial coin offering tool, but a crowdfunding tool, right? So, I mean, I guess you could argue I overstepped my bounds in the analogy in that case specifically. But I mean, it shouldn't be that challenging with the model of crowdfunding to then create a smart contract that also spits out some random token you designed for your ICO and then have that all be automated as well. So I think it'd probably be a few more lines and a little bit of extra logic. But yeah.
Okay, and the second problem I found at some point is complexity of spending some scripts and for wallets to find own boxes. So how do you operate with that? So how can me, for example, as a user who crowdfunded, do you find my boxes, whether I can spend them now or I cannot? So how about that? So have you tried refunding?
So I have tried refunding on my own, and in regards to finding the boxes, to my knowledge, that is the whole well, not the whole point, but one of the major points of Ergo Improvement Process 1,
Mhm.
right? And so I think by joining all that together, then it's going to be quite a seamless process. For right now, the withdrawal process is still quite manual, so you have to essentially find the boxes yourself. And so, you know, in a crowdfund scenario, you wish to ask the community for funding. And so
Mhm.
likely you'll create a forum post and you'll have this, essentially centralized place where people can say, hey, I put this box online via the CLI tool. This is the, the ID or hash or whatever. And so you can easily find it yourself. And so right now it's not that big of an issue, but obviously it would be great to have this all automated. And that's why this is going to be worked on in the near future.
Yeah, so about refunds, so wallet is capable to find them automatically before EIP 1. And after EIP 1, so probably you will need for using some tool to check such refund boxes specifically. About withdrawing, so with the command line crowdfunding tool, it is pretty straightforward to create a withdrawal transaction, right, Robert?
Indeed. Okay, so going on to the next tool, we have the Ergo script pay-to-script playground by Jason Davies. And this is a pretty simple script that allows you to take a smart contract script, Ergo script, that is created, fill in all the different parts, like, your address, how much you want to deposit, blah, 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 or, limits, parameters within the script. And then you can spit it into Jason Davies' pay-to-script playground, and then it automatically generates the pay-to-script address so that you can deposit your funds into and then have them locked underneath that script. This is not a crazy tool that's going to be probably used in the long term, but it's nice to see that people are creating these small playgrounds, these small tools, these small improvements in the experience for developers that weren't available before. And so it's it's good to see that there's actual push behind all this. Continuing on, we also had Ergo Improvement Proposal 3, which is quite simple, where it was the BIP44 standard for HD wallets for Ergo. And this was by Gagarin55, and I made a small addition to this. And so essentially, there's a long list of different numbers for the whole BIP44 standard. And we got very, very lucky because essentially we decided to go for Ergo, made into ASCII, and then summed up the ASCII values, which sums up to 429. And specifically, like, every single number until 428 was taken, and then almost like the next 100 numbers after 429 was taken. But for some reason, 429 just wasn't taken. And so I'm not sure, fate, God, or what provided us this opportunity, but we managed to take 429, and that is officially the BIP44 Ergo HD wallet number. And so that was kind of cool. Continuing on, because that was just a small EIP, we have Ergo Improvement Proposal number 4. And so this is the Ergo token standard made by Katena, Dmitry, Alex, and Oskin1. And so I'll leave this open to you guys because you did so much more than me in this. I mean, I just read it, so enjoy.
So it's mostly done by Dmitry. So Dmitry, go ahead, please.
Well, actually, it was already implemented like more than 1 year ago, I guess, within a full node. And this EIP just write a standard for the stuff that is already implemented within a full node. Because at some point we decided that we need some way to describe tokens. It's something similar to ERC20 standard in Ethereum, for example. So when you issue your token, you need to provide some description of it. It's quite often it's a good opportunity to provide some description, some name, number of decimals, and so we have implemented it in full node. I don't remember when this was actually done, but quite a long time ago. With putting all these boxes in registers, all these descriptions and information, and it it really helps to find information about token to show it in front end. So this EP was created by me because we were working on Coinbarn wallet, and we need to understand how to show these tokens in front end. They have name, or how many decimal places do they have. And actually, it's quite easy to find these tokens using Explorer or full node. So even with old information, you don't need some complicated search within a blockchain. You don't need to scan all the chain to find this information, because token ID is actually an ID of the first input of the transaction that created it. So when you have a token ID, you can find the transaction that created it, and you can grab all the information from that. I think it's quite cool idea. So it's allowed to implement quite efficient search, and without any additional tools, without any trust. So you can check a blockchain, extract some transactions, and show them. So it's quite a simple standard, just describes what registers to use for what information and how to encode it. But I think it's quite good and important move in regards of user experience, and will allow us to operate with tokens much more efficiently in the future.
Definitely. So it was actually quite nice to see this, because in Coinbarn, which we'll get to a little bit later on, tokens work quite easy. And I tested around for a while in Coinbarn, and it's nice to see that we went from being able to manually create tokens in the full node, which is not the easiest process in life, to then having a full token standard, and then having that into a awesome, easy to set up light wallet that allows you to just put in a few your name of your token, how many you want, and then just make one transaction, and in from 5 minutes of downloading Coinbarn, you can have a brand new token on Ergo, as long as you have Ergo in your wallet. That's a pretty cool experience, which probably wasn't possible 3 months ago, but it is possible now. So it's good to see those step-by-step improvements.
Yeah, also I should mention that for now, token infrastructure for Ergo is quite bad still. So for example, if you use Magnum wallet, it will just lose your tokens if you'll send some to it. The same as for some exchanges, probably they don't grab it, but that might be quite usual. So the only way was to use a full node to operate with Ergo tokens, which is for sure not so user-friendly, because even for me, there were some issues with wallets. I'm not sure whether they are fixed now or not. But you need to rescan all the blockchain to find your coins, find your tokens, and create quite complicated transactions to issue them. So I hope that it's this standard and further implementation will significantly improve user experience in terms of token operations, which is quite basic feature of any blockchain right now. I think like must-have feature for any blockchain we have. So ability to issue own tokens is quite important, and it was also discussed for us from inside our team. As far as Ergo is focused on some financial contracts, for sure we have we want to have at least some tokens that are related to USD or BTC or some real value. So it will be much easier to operate with such contracts if you have tokens. So tokens are on a base level, so they're on a very low level of Ergo protocol. They're not just contracts, and hopefully this will allow to operate them efficiently and with nice user experience.
Right. So another way to say it is Ergo tokens are almost in essence first-class citizens, unlike in Ethereum where it's kind of bolted on top. Not entirely, but I mean, that's why in Ethereum you have the concept of, like wrapped Ether so that you can, tokenize Ether to act like a token. And so, you have this disparaging separation between tokens and Ether, while in Ergo it's much more unified to some degree. Continuing on, we also had the very first Ergo Mix on-chain attempt. And so Ergo Mix is a privacy protocol that was in one of the 2 Ergo script white papers that was put out before mainnet came on. And this isn't a full protocol that's easily usable by anyone, but we did have the very first tests and have people actually create boxes that is in this essentially mixing protocol that are undistinguishable from each other. And so if either of you want to jump in on this, because this is definitely not my area of expertise.
All right, so mixing protocol was described in some paper before. Well, actually, maybe not a paper, but yeah, so there is its description somewhere. And yeah, then somehow this mixing transaction was made by Jason Davis. Unfortunately, there are not much details still, so Jason is promising to create a pull request because some modifications are needed in order to do this mixing to sign not so straightforward Diffie-Hellman tuple Sigma protocol statement. And yeah, so Jason Davis hopefully will do that soon. And currently there is one guy who is working on command line tool for mixing, as far as I know. So soon it will be much easier to do mixing on top of Ergo. And then hopefully some UI will follow. And also there are some developments in regards with mixing on mobiles, even as far as I know, but not much details I can share right now. But yeah, that's mixing done and described on the forum. So step by step. So first, Amitabh created box with a kiosk. We will discuss further, I believe. And then yeah, Jason somehow finished that mixing and yeah, described it briefly on forum, and we see a mixing transaction on the blockchain, which is creating indistinguishable outputs. Yeah, the question now is how to replicate it and how to scale it. So then we can have some kind of real mixing tool on the Ergo blockchain. And also in 2020, some paper about this mixing scheme will appear, hopefully. So yeah, we already made a lot, right, in regards with the mixing. So not so much blockchains can show non-interactive mixing scheme even. Not to say that it was done like 2 or 3 months after launching on mainnet. And yeah, currently there is some tool in development, as far as I know, to do mixing.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's quite cool that you know, we even have the possibility to do this, where because of the way we have ErgoScript, it's able to adapt to such, you know, higher level protocols such as mixing without having to do some sort of a hard fork, which is pretty cool. And so that shows that there's a lot of possibility in the future for future protocols that no one even has thought of today. After Ergo Mix, we also have oracles. And so this is a feature that technically I think is usable today, unlike Ergo Mix, which kind of needs some more work over 2020, which will probably get done. With Ergo oracles, we already have a Python CLI tool that allows people to create oracles. And I think we have one online right now that does the Ergo USD pair and posts that on chain. The CLI tool was created by Sinin Tivus, and if anyone wants to take it away from there.
All right, so first some basics, right? So like in Bitcoin, a transaction in Ergo is spending some inputs, right, and creating some outputs. But also it is possible to provide some read-only inputs. We are calling them data inputs. And by doing this, you can efficiently read any data from current state of the blockchain from the UTXO set, right? And this allows in particular for efficient Oracle schemes. And Sinin Tivus made a command line tool to fetch initially USD price from CoinMarketCap and write it in a register of a box on the Ergo blockchain. And this box is also authenticated via a singleton token, right? So we are currently exploring design patterns in regards with our contractual layer. And in particular, as we have UTXOs, right, not accounts, but if you want to authorize some entity somehow, so you can issue token with a singular form, right? So there is only one instance of such token. We are calling it singular token. And this token is essentially replacing accounts, right? In account-based cryptocurrencies. And so by searching for this token, right, so you can find a box which contains this token, and it also contains price for USD in case of this oracle. And then Sinin Tivus also made data grabbing for euro price, as far as I know, so Ergo to euro, and also gold. Gold to USD probably. So currently it's possible to create different pricing oracles on the Ergo blockchain to be used in contracts after. And yeah, it allows for contracts which do need for such pricing data. For example, these loan contracts, right, for tethering contracts, and so on. So quite useful infrastructure, I guess.
Most definitely. I mean, oracles are something that everyone thinks are necessary for most blockchains. There's entire projects, actually. I've talked to, teams of 3, 4, 5 people throughout 2019 who had blockchain startups, and their whole go-to was, we're doing stuff on top of oracles, on top of Ethereum. And so, when you have businesses on top of oracles, which probably will have some product, and maybe other people will have other products on top of that, well, then it seems like oracles are a pretty important deal. And I mean, whenever we want, non-interactive on-chain protocols to take data from the outside world without something like state channels, well, then this is pretty much the go-to way. Continuing forward, we had a kiosk, a web-based UI for configuring and interacting with smart contracts on the blockchain, and it's made by Scala Hub. I'm pretty sure it was made in Scala, obviously. And so this was just a nice tool that allows you to have more finesse in generating smart contract transactions, and this is useful, though this is much more of a dev tool rather than something that's a very usable front end for your average day person. If you guys don't have any more comments on that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a tool for hackers. So if you are going
Yeah.
to play deeply with Ergo contracts, so kiosk may be useful for you.
Right. Continuing on for your hacker crowd, we have AppKit, which is a polyglot library for development of Ergo applications on top of GraalVM with multi-language support. And this was by Alexander Slesarenko. Hopefully I got the name right. Essentially, AppKit is quite cool with GraalVM because it allows you to theoretically, and I mean this has been done in practice, but this just it needs a lot of fine tuning most likely. Be able to produce a library in one language, like Java, and then have it also essentially link right into a foreign function interface with Python and other languages, and have this generalizable standard on top of GraalVM, which allows you to have libraries in different languages all interact and work with each other on top of one virtual machine. And so no matter if your preferred language is Python, someone else's is JavaScript, and someone else's is Java, you can all live in one happy ecosystem all together and then work off of the work of others too. And so AppKit is a part of that, running on top of GraalVM, which allows you to interact with the Ergo blockchain and have the ability to send transactions, spend boxes, do smart contract stuff, and have this wonderful, great experience. And that's built on top of GraalVM. And so if anyone has any corrections to that, because I think I got that right, but
Not correction, I just want to mention my personal opinion that it's a super important development for Ergo, because as far as I know, Ergo script original implementation is very complicated, and we can't expect it to be ported to JavaScript or some other language. At least its full implementation with all this costing and complexity calculations that are really complicated. But hopefully with GraalVM it will be possible to use Ergo script outside of Scala language, because anyway Scala language is quite limited and it limits the number of developers we have. So if I understand this idea correctly, it might really provide good opportunity to increase the development number of developers on top of Ergo or something like this. That's a cool feature and might be really, really useful.
Indeed.
Oh yeah, so for Ergo 3, not Ergo script, right? It's not so easy to do an automotive implementation now. So for 2020, we will do specification, right? And maybe then some alternative implementations will follow. And so currently for the Ergo 3 interpretation reduction to Sigma protocol and proving the Sigma protocol. So probably JVM is the only option, but with AppKit, it's now can be used with non-JVM languages. So this is quite important thing, and as far as I know, there are some good tools coming soon on top of Ergo AppKit. So probably we will discuss this tool in following podcasts.
Sure.
Yeah. So some great news are coming in the Godspeed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of awesome developments with a lot of things kind of in an early mid stage. And so 2020 is going to be a good year to see all of this come to fruition, and then tools being built on top of tools, being built on top of tools. And we're going to start to see a bigger snowball effect, especially as we bring in more people into the Ergo community. We have more developers and everything really grows. Coming on to, I guess I can do a couple topics at once, because now we're looking more at what's been done in regards to smart contracts. And so let's talk about auctions on Ergo, then proof of activity. And so with auctions on Ergo, this is kind of a fun story, which I think we touched upon in the first episode a little bit, where we were talking in Slack, and essentially Alex brought up the thought, like, how is it possible to do auctions in a UTXO-based system, which no one has ever done before, to our knowledge? Like, we've never seen something like that before because there's not been any smart contract languages on UTXO systems. And within, I think, 2 or 3 days, I came up with an original, protocol that had a few holes, which I believe Scala Hub helped to patch in and fix. And I think within 4 days, we came up with an auction model that works on top of Ergo. And it's quite cool. It wasn't that many lines of code because Scala Hub wrote the code for the smart contract in Ergo script. And so that was quite cool. In under a week, we went from idea, first version of the protocol in terms of the concept of the protocol, then to implementing it by Scala Hub. And so it was quite cool to have one person think of it, someone else understand it, and then implement it. And then boom, in 5 days, suddenly we can do auctions on Ergo. Quite cool, quite awesome. Continuing on with that, we also had the concept of proof of activity to allow, for example, to pay full nodes who are online. And so if they can show that they're active, this is one way that is a theoretical protocol for paying out nodes, or other forms of protocols where you need someone to be active the whole time and to prove that they are active. And so if either of you want to jump in for either the auctions or the proof of activity, feel free.
Oh yeah, so actually the name was coined in some paper from 2012 made by Ido Bentov, Alex Mizrahi, and some other guys. So the idea was to combine, to augment proof of work protocol of Bitcoin in the way that the augmented protocol is also rewarding full node users, right? So the idea is follow. So first, miners are generating a block, like it's done in Bitcoin, and then randomness from this block is used to create a few cosigners of the block, who are providing signatures, and these users have right to cosign this block if they are selected by randomness, right, from the block. So the idea of proof of activity contracts for Ergo is to simulate this protocol basically without core modification, right? So we are using randomness from the blockchain, and then this randomness is used to reward some active users running full nodes, so which are watching for the unspent outputs. Okay, and yeah, we are using retargeting to reduce a number of lucky guys, right? So maybe to increase number depending on rate of success and so on. So it's quite interesting protocol, I believe, to reward full node users, to reward guys running full nodes, and hopefully implementations will follow. Let's see what will happen with that.
Yeah, it's a good. It's definitely a good idea to have actual rewards for full nodes, which are inherently part of the infrastructure, but currently blockchains don't really. I guess maybe people consider it valuable, but they don't have a mechanism for actually rewarding said people in the protocol itself. So next we have, this was a small idea that I came up with at the end of the year, right before I finished off for the year and went on holidays. Excuse me. Being the universal dApp interface. And so this was kind of an idea that I ran into where on Ethereum, you typically see a dApp being the combination of a smart contract or a set of smart contracts and their front end. And typically, because we don't really have a decentralized internet, everything is just, super funneled into you have a server, you have a website, you have a front end. And so most apps end up just being a website or an app which you download. And so you have this one interface. And if that company stops having a server running in the background, well, then your dApp is gone into the ether and no one can use it. And so the whole idea that kind of spurred me to write up it's probably a 5 or 6 or 8 page concept of a new dApp interface and packaging standard is the concept of what if you could separate a dApp from its front end and then instead have some sort of packageable dApp that is fully inclusive. And so how would that be possible? In essence, instead of writing a front end, you can then create a interface specification. So to break that down, you have a smart contract on chain, and there's a certain set of actions which you can perform with that smart contract. In order to do those actions, you need to be able to know how. And so having an interface definition, which tells you, okay, there are 3 actions like spend, redeem, something else. And to do each action, you need certain inputs. And so in your interface definition, you can say, okay, if a user wishes to redeem, then let's say they need a spending password. And so in your interface definition for your smart contract, you can specify that for the redeem action, you need a string, and that string needs to be, let's say, at least 24 characters. Let's say a very long spending password. You can encode all of that into an interface definition, which is just a separate file that defines what is required of your smart contract. And with this interface definition, you can then pack it with your smart contract and essentially have, a dApp that doesn't rely on a front end, and it can have numerous front ends built for it or even automatically generated. And then you get a lot of benefits because it's not just this one ephemeral implementation that is a dApp, but it's something that's movable. You can hand off to other people. They can create their own front end. They can, analyze it and actually use it, and then have the guarantee that if they attempt to generate a transaction, as long as the interface definition is correct, that transaction will for sure be valid, and the results that they expect, assuming they have the correct password, then they will actually be able to redeem the funds. And so this is a lengthy idea, and it's not officially a standard, more it's like the ruminations of how to create such a standard. But if anyone's interested in checking that out, all the links for everything that we're talking about today will be in the Ergo Cast episode post. And so you can check that all out right there.
Okay, Robert, but there is also something about formal verification document, right?
Yeah, so essentially, the idea is that you can have certain preconditions based off of your interface definition. And so to kind of take a step back, when you're doing formal verification, what you prefer to do, if you can, is have an automated form of formal verification rather than manually writing everything, say, in Coq, Agda, Idris, etc. And so you'd like to use tools that simplify this and make this as easy as possible. And so when you write a specification for formal verification, you tend to have, you require preconditions. And so what's possible is with an interface definition, you can then use your input definition. So like what inputs are allowed or what inputs are supposed to be sent to the smart contract by the user. in having that, they are in essence preconditions for a formal verification. And so this doesn't completely automate the whole process because you still have to do you have to specify more things for your formal definition, formal spec, and specifically the axioms or the invariants which you want to test on. But this essentially allows you to automate a small part of the whole process. And so the summation of what this idea of a universal DApp interface provides you is essentially guaranteed input validity, formal verification, preconditions automatically generated, and then having the ability to have a package standard along with a either automatically generated GUI or a very easily defined front end for GUI front ends. So essentially a easy ability to connect the smart contract to a front end and have a middleware that tells you exactly how everything is supposed to connect. And so this was kind of a cool idea, and I've got some good feedback about it. And so maybe we'll see in the next year how this will be adapted in the Ergo ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it could be a game changer in the DApp industry because
we'll see.
People are dreaming about aspects of that, but here I see the complete document, which is looking realistic, right? So there is nothing cosmic here, so everything is pretty solid. And as a whole, this standard can change the apps industry, I believe.
Thank you for the kind words. Okay, but that's going to take a long time to actually come to fruition because that's a doc on how to do something, but there are no direct plans on exactly how we're going to implement this, and so this is something that's quite far into the future, but totally possible in Ergo. That said, now getting to something that's in the right here, right now, we're going to talk about the Ergo TypeScript library and the Coinbarn wallet, which we have mentioned earlier in the episode. And so, Dmitry, if you wish to take it away, feel free to give us a full explanation of what the TypeScript library is, and then why is Coinbarn wallet the easiest and best wallet for a beginner to use for Ergo?
We have discussed a lot of cool ideas today, and smart contracts, DApps, like auctions, mixing, crowdfunding, and so on. But my main concern is that it's almost impossible to use them right now for regular users, at least. And so I probably had talked about it right after the launch. So we have already quite a good core, and we have some proofs that we can implement anything we want, including Turing complete contracts. We have nice cryptography on a lower level, light clients, and so on. But we need to work on some user-friendly interfaces infrastructure. Actually, this wallet project was started even by Vasily Harin, who have the same concerns and told that it's impossible to use Ergo right now, so let's do at least something. He had implemented a Python library earlier, and actually a wallet desktop one, but it's not in production, so we can't touch it. And also I had quite a lot of problems with building wallets into Node. I'm managing wallets of two quite small mining farms around it. So, and it's always a mess to grab some money that you minted because your wallet may be synchronization may be broken, so it become incorrect and generates incorrect transactions. So what we decided to do is to implement some user-friendly wallet that is easy to use, that supports some basic features like tokens, and that was done pretty fast, I guess. But when we started to implement the wallet, we understood that we need a better library, because existing Ergo.js library we had is quite a low quality, unfortunately, and it was very hard to add some new features to it, like writing some data to registers. It was also losing some tokens. If you're trying to send tokens, it just loses them. So after some time of work, we implemented the first simple prototype, and we decided that it's quite cool, and we found a designer who made this cute homestead design. Probably we'll discuss Coinbar wallet in more details and some further podcast with the whole Coinbar team. But I just want to mention probably that now there is Ergo wallet that is quite easy to use. You can issue tokens, you can transfer coins, and it's for sure some basics, but hopefully it will be improved. It was designed as a browser extension, so it probably can interact with different dApps and really make this mixings and auctions possible for regular users if they wish to do something like this. And if you are a front-end developer, you can also easily use a library that is, I guess, also quite important, because anyway, JavaScript is quite popular in development.
By the way, for wallets, we also introduced a panel after the launch, so around October or November. And with panel, currently it's much easier to send tokens and to get your wallet address, to get your balance. So it is pretty simple UI, I believe.
Right. So now we also have a good UI for a full node wallet as well as this light wallet. So the Ergo community is progressing forward quite well.
Yeah, hopefully.
So lastly, for the last topic for today, we have bypassing non-outsourceable proof-of-work schemes using collateralized smart contracts. That is a big mouthful, but in essence, the relevancy to Ergo, which I'm sure Alex will expand on, is that in Ergo, you are required to use your private key as a part of the proof-of-work mining scheme. And so this is to prevent pools. However, this also makes it very challenging for small individuals who only have a few GPUs or one GPU to actually take part in mining. So we need a collateralized smart contract solution to allow users to group into pools and then be able to do what these major big players who are doing all this solo mining themselves. And so Alex, you want to take it from there?
So Ergo is about non-outsourceable proof-of-work scheme called Autolycos. All right, and basically Autolycos is requiring private key to be on the miner side in the proof-of-work proof generation. But this is not the only approach for non-outsourceable proof-of-work puzzles. So another approach is from Andrew Miller's paper on non-outsourceable puzzles. And in this approach, for miner, if miner is successful generating one block, then there is a non-negligible probability to generate another successful block, right? And then you generate one block for pool, another block for yourself, and well, you can not even submit the pool block. You just generate another block without rewarding transaction to the pool, but rewarding yourself, okay, and run with such block. So in this new paper, so we consider both schemes, and for both schemes, it seems it is possible to build some collateralized smart contracts to bypass both notions of non-outsourceability. So after this paper, only so-called strong non-outsourceable scheme from Andrew Miller remains not bypassable. But this scheme is not very practical because it is using snarks, well, other generic zero-knowledge proof systems. And it is also not very practical maybe to give possibility to generate many successful blocks to miners, right? Because it can be about having more forking issues in the blockchain. And it was widely believed tenet in the folklore, again, that such schemes is possible. So it was the piecework scheme from Phil Dayan and Gun Emin-Gunshir, professor at Cornell University. And so some comments to that paper mentioned that it is possible to bypass non-outsourceability notion of that paper by creating escrow smart contracts. But nobody developed this tenet before us. So currently we have affirmative answer to the question of possibility to bypass non-outsourceable proof of work schemes. So most of them. And so in practice, this paper is describing how to create a pool for Ergo, right, and other non-outsourceable proof of work schemes. So with powerful enough smart contract layer, it seems, you can do that. You can create pools anyway.
Which is quite cool because, as you said, it wasn't really done for a while. And so to see it on this nascent blockchain is always exciting. So with that said, we have covered a lot of what has happened in the Ergo community, in the Ergo, core dev side, in the wallet side, smart contracts, protocols on protocols on protocols, all the fun stuff, from auctions to zero coupon bonds, to universal DApp interfaces, all the way to a great light wallet called Coinbarn. We have a lot happening in the Ergo ecosystem. And so if any of this has interested you at all the links will be on ergocast.io for every single paper, forum thread, Coinbarn, everything that you want from this episode is on the website. And if any of it interests you, I would be happy to see you come and join the community. And so you can go to Ergo forum and, start talking and seeing what all of this is all about. And so I'd like to say thank you to both Dmitry and Alex for being on the show today. And thank you to all of you for listening/watching.
Right. So I would like to say pretty much the same. So please come to the community and build. So Ergo provides a possibility to build a lot of exciting tools. So let's build them together.
Thank you, guys. Bye.